Okay, we are live. It is another episode of Chiropractic is Sexy. I am Dr. Paula Ruffin.
I'm Dr. Erica Peabody. I'm trying to get my yellow ring
Oh,
light
your
to
ring
get out
light.
of my eyeballs. Happy Thursday, everyone. We see you out there already.
Yes.
Awesome. So Thursday,
Jump
here we
on
are
in,
again.
give it a thumbs up, share it to your
Yes.
friends.
Yes.
Tell
Remember,
the world.
your best health comes from liking, subscribing, and sharing.
That's right.
The best health.
That's free, right? You always say
free.
you can't afford to be healthy.
Low cost,
but that's
no cost.
free. That's
Low cost,
free.
no cost.
I love it. Oh
Yeah,
man. We are gonna dive into it today. I wanted to really talk about this topic of carpal tunnel because again, when Dr. Eric and I bring you things, it's because we're seeing a lot of this in our practice. And oftentimes people come in and they have numbness and tingling in their hands or down their arm, or we're seeing a lot of like tennis elbow. I'm just going to say tendonitis in the elbow, which people call tennis elbow or golfer's elbow. And there is a reason for that beyond the elbow. And there's a reason that we as chiropractors have such success working with people that have these issues. It's because we zoom out and we take a broader look and we look to the spine. And so we're going to show you a little bit of anatomy today. We're going to make it super simple, not trying to turn you into an anatomist, scientist, but you'll get it. You'll totally get it. And so we hope that by seeing some of these things that we're going to show you, some of these graphics, and hearing what we're going to say, that you're going to be able to say, that's me, or, oh my gosh, I know somebody who. So that's what we're hoping for.
I love that. And I'm going to just say, that's me. And I'll tell my story later on as we go through this. God bless you. I'll tell my story a little bit later on after we go through the anatomy, but what's been going on for me personally. And I got to tell you, like, when I saw this topic come across in my email, I was like, I can't say it's like my most favorite thing, but it's always good when we're like tapping into the nervous system connection to all of it. And then I'm like, well, I probably don't like it because I don't really want to admit that that's actually what's going on with me.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so we're all
reality check.
We also have a lot of patients that have gone in for the surgeries. The surgery itself is pretty gnarly. I actually have had patients go in for the carpal tunnel surgery, but also it's like both. It's both, and like it's so bad that it's not only just the anatomy that tracks all the way back to the spine, but it's also that too. So yeah.
And a lot of people who go in for that surgery, they get relief right away. And we're going to talk about why that relief doesn't last. Why does that come back? And the surgery, as Dr. Erica is saying, it is gnarly. And when you see the anatomy, it's one of these things. I guess I'll just say the gallbladder. While we're not talking about gallbladder, but gallbladder seems to be this organ that many people think is just a throwaway. You don't need that. We can just take it out. Let's just take it. The tonsils, let's just take them out. You don't need those. You need every organ that God has given you and you were born with. So every organ is there for a reason. And so when we talk about carpal tunnel, when you go in and you start to cut things to relieve the nerves, or many people will get, if they have chronic back or neck pain, they will go in and they will cauterize, meaning they will burn the nerve endings. And there's a term for that surgical procedure, which is escaping me at the moment. I don't know if you remember it, but they go in and they burn the nerve roots so you stop feeling the pain. That does not solve a thing.
Are you talking about cauterization?
Cauterization, but there's a term for, what's the term for cauterization of,
I mean, there's a nerve block, or they'll do.
No, there's an actual like surgical ablation, ablation.
Ablation.
Yeah. So, but people don't really know what ablation means. So I just say burn the nerves. because it's
Well,
essentially what they're
and also
doing.
they think about ablations only for heart, right? So they think about it when you're talking about like PVCs or, you know, fib, like AFib or whatever. They always think about ablation for that. But yeah, same. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Same thing.
So, so let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy a little bit, which is, I hope, will enlighten everybody. And so I'm going to start first of all just by showing you. And I was trying to figure out how to get my mouse to work, but I can't. So just look at the picture and follow my words. But you can see on this picture here that the nerve roots come out and right about between C5 and T1. So that's right about the lower, the lower neck up to where, and T1 is that bump that you feel if you just put your hand back there. It's usually where people get the hump, the old lady hump that most women don't want to get. That's right about T1. And so you can see there's nerve roots that come out from these 4 to 5 different segments. Is that C5, 6, 7, 2? Yeah. So we'll say 4 segments. And then it forms what's called the brachial plexus, and it goes underneath your collarbone. And so this is where we get, if you have tight muscles, you're already starting to compress this whole, it's a bundle of nerves. And then that bundle of nerves goes into the arm. But for the purposes of carpal tunnel, we're just going to talk about the median nerve, which is the main nerve. And so the median nerve comes down, and you can see it comes through the middle of the arm there, and then it goes down into the wrist. And as it enters into the wrist, there's this little, it's called the carpal tunnel, and it's a U-shaped bone right here in your wrist, and it faces up, and the median nerve goes through it, and then it's covered by a tendon. And so typically carpal tunnel surgery, they just say, oh, we'll just cut that tendon. Let's just cut that. And so they release, they call it a tendon release, because that sounds way better than saying we're going to cut your tendon. And so they just cut the tendon, and they take the stress from the tendon off of the nerve. Well, that does create some relief, but you can see now that this is typically, it's very commonly called a double crush syndrome, because we not only have stress and pressure at the wrist, but then we have all of this compression and tension at the neck. And here's what that looks like. What Dr. Eric and I see often is the cervical curves. This is why we talk about spinal hygiene, is we have a normal cervical curve, and the jaw is facing this. I don't know if it's right or left to you guys.
Yeah.
But, okay. So
I mean, just the points in the back, like you can see the top bone there. So
yes.
that you can see kind of like the spikes of a stegosaurus. That's going to be the back.
Yes. There you go.
Yeah.
So you can see it's kind of a shape of a banana, like a backwards C almost is what we say. And that is like a coil spring. So that adds to the compression of the spine or the flexibility. And so as we go through life, you can see the image on the right side where it says reverse cervical curve. When that reverses right in about that mid, if you just count from the top down to C5, now you can start to see how we get compression, we get irritation, we get joint degeneration starting around that C5 to C7. That's typically a pivot point of some kind of slip, trip, fall, accident, injury, anything.
Or
and
technology.
So what's that?
Or technology, posture.
And technology, right? So a lot of, and then hunching over and letting your head hang forward. And so that just exacerbates that. So now you're really exacerbating that whole brachial plexus, compressing it here at the neck. And then that can actually cause you to have symptoms here in the wrist without having compression here at the wrist. So that's an interesting dynamic as well when it comes to carpal tunnel.
Well, I was just thinking about it too, as people think. So you talked about the brachial plexus, where that comes through. The spine becomes, the brachial plexus that you can see the nerve roots to right outside the spine. So that sits right in that hole right there. And this is controlled by, there's also the first rib is in there. And also like the entire, like the start of the rib cage comes around there. Like, my first rib sits right in there. I don't understand. I'm like, yes. And when that misaligns, not only does it compress there, it also can create all kinds of headaches and tension. And The body, okay, so egg and sperm came together, created this incredible body. The body's not lacking anything, doesn't have any extra parts, nothing that Dr. Paula has already said, but it's always going to be in protection mode, or it's always going to be trying to keep your eyes on the horizon and keep things moving forward, and it will compensate there. So when they go down to just the extremities and you don't turn around and come back, honestly, any single surgery that's going on with the body at all the person should be tending to the spine. But I just watched a little, how old is he? 6 years old, get off the table this morning. So I adjusted him. He got off the table and his mom was getting adjusted next. So he grabbed the phone and he's sitting like this. The phone's in his lap. And because he's 6, he's super flexible. And that is exactly that spot. And so I got to tell you, if you've got a 2-year-old to anybody under the age of 17 or 18, like get them off the screens, get the posture, stop doing that because it's creating that. And people say, well, what do you see for the future, our children with all this screen time and the technology as babysitters? Like as the twig bends, so grows the tree. So if you want to wrap, you got your garden going and you got a fence, like you just encourage it to wrap itself around something to hold it up. Then you leave it like that for a long period of time. That's exactly how that thing's going to grow. So if you're compromising the lower cervical spine, I mean, we're going to have the hunchback of Notre Dame. It's going to be like what these children at 2 years old that get on screens and sit there are going to do. But then that's also going to affect the brachial plexus all the way out into the arms and then all the way down into the hands. And then what are we going to do? Just keep cutting carpal tunnels open? Like, what are we going to keep doing? What are we doing? I don't understand where this is. You know what I mean? Like, I don't understand how this is going to ever pan out. It's not.
Well, and we also have more than ever, we have chronic lung issues in these kids. We have, I'm looking for another image. I just pulled
so when this straightens out, anytime that your head is bent forward, your brain's swelling. So then we have ADD, ADHD, all of that. Like you can't be well with that posture. And so it's always like the function follows the structure. So we're working on the structure to make sure the function is optimized and that they're growing straighter, taller, but also that the nervous system and the information superhighway has free access to the body, like is moving like it should. So,
and these kids, their bones are soft in the sense that they are still forming, they're growing, and so if you're sitting and everything is squished forward when it's supposed to grow more in a block shape, and they're constantly bending forward, they are going to, just by nature of constantly sitting like that, grow with misshapen bones, just like Dr. Erica said. Like as the twig goes, the tree goes. So the twig,
the twig bends, so grows the tree. Will you go back? Can you pull up that anatomy or not the anatomy, the X-ray? Will you pull that back up?
Quick? Yeah. Hold on one second.
If you can.
Yep, I can. Hold on. I have another image I'm trying to pull up here for us. The X-ray. There we go.
Okay, so as we're looking, so we see the stegosaurus in the back, and we see the front line of where the vertebrae are. So the blocks that Dr. Paula is talking about. Each one of those blocks has a growth plate at the corners. So the growth plates are going to be responding to the position that they're in. So what we're really looking at is down the center. So before the stegosaurus part starts, the back part of the block, you'll see kind of like a darker white line, right? So that line is where the spinal cord is. So the kind of continuous sort of curve of that white line-ish down the center. And then you can see how the spinal cord is going to be a mess. Right. It's like, it's not supposed to go that way. It's not supposed to go that way, but our world and, then if we're just growing that way. So I'm going to strongly encourage. Yes. Thank you.
How often do you see this
all the time?
Picture?
Everywhere.
All the time.
Everywhere.
Time. And when we're showing it in an image here on screen, I'm sure those of you watching are like, oh my God, that looks terrible. But when you see it out in the wild, nobody thinks twice about it. This has been normalized for our kids, for our society, that a kid is just going to be on a screen, bent over in a C like that, compressing his organs, his spine. It's contributing to lack of brain oxygen and blood flow to the brain, to the digestive organs, to the lungs. And most of these kids today, we have 1 in 2 kids have at least 2 or more chronic health issues. Well, if you can get your kid to sit up straight and get more oxygen to their bodies, to their brain, to their lungs, to their digestive organs, I think that alone, and then getting them to the chiropractor so we make sure that this does not take root into something more pathologic as they get older, those 2 things, sit up straight, go to the chiropractor.
Yep. Also, this also reminds me, like, get the kids drinking water, like, just work with the water inside the body as well, getting hydrated, getting the movement. So our spine moves in 6 different planes and probably more than that. So this way it twists, it side bends. And so that's 6, but there's really there's a 7th where it could move up and down, right? So our spines are designed for that. Our bodies are designed for that. And when they're in that posture and that little, I don't know, he looks about 3 or 4 years old, that little body needs to be moving for proper neurological development. And so not only does it lead to potential, nerve root issues and moving out into the extremities, but that brain needs all the input. It doesn't need this input. It needs input from the world. It needs to go out and wrestle, and it needs to move side to side, and it needs to bend forward and back. It needs to twist. It needs to do jumping jacks. We need to do hopscotch. We need to be on swings and all the things, and not because when they're in school, they're sitting in that posture. So because they have multiple hours in school, it requires even more on the outside to get out of those postures and move the body around. Because quite frankly, our goal is always independent living for as long as possible. But you start those postures early, you start moving your posture into this position, and then you start heading down. And then this posture will lead to, in the 6th, 7th, 8th decade of life, that shuffling that you see, because the brain's like, what am I doing? I'm about to fall forward. I'm shuffling because I got to try and figure out how to keep my body upright. And so it just starts with one mess to the next. And so it's so critical. I love that way up at the government level inside with RFK, they did this huge movement discussion, and where is health going, and chiropractors were right at the table, and it was just awesome what came of that and sort of the statement that was made. But it's so much starts with the posture, the movement, and all of that stuff. So yeah.
And if we can prevent this whole issue, again, just if we just tie it back to, and carpal tunnel is just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
But it's these types of things that we see every day that they build up slowly over time. And when you are constantly like that, that is also going to be the child that has, I can't remember if you mentioned this already, but who it's going to contribute to ADD, ADHD, which I know you mentioned, headaches, learning disabilities. Again, you're cutting off that blood flow. And so is surgery the answer? Maybe down the road. But when you look at something like this and you're like, maybe I just need to sit up straight. Maybe if I'm sitting at a desk all day, maybe I need to stand up. Maybe I need to do some stretches, open up my shoulders. Maybe I need to get a stand-up desk. And a lot of people, what they do with a stand-up desk is they stand up. And of course, I have a bar height desk or counter height desk, but I'm standing and my hands would be where my keyboard is, but if I had to look down at my keyboard, I'm still looking down. So we have to get our visual field up and higher, which will then start to protect all those nerves as it comes out of the spine, protect that brachial plexus, and give it less stress. The more you bump that head forward, knock that head forward, the more you keep it there, the more you're pushing the balloon, the disc, towards the back where all those nerves are. So you're damaging the disc will get stuck there, it pushes on the nerves, and now all of a sudden you think you have carpal tunnel, when really you have cervical radiculopathy, which is a fancy word for you have a pinched nerve, which is chiropractors will yell at me for saying pinched nerve, but I don't care. It's lay terms. So
I have this. So this is my laptop stand. I would rather, so when I sit at my desk, so I would be at this level looking down at you, or I bring it up and I have it at this level, which keeps my cervical spine at the level it's supposed to be. I would rather my hands be higher than my neck be down. So of course, ideally I would get another keyboard and keep my hands down low and look up, but this should be we should not be looking down. And also with our students in school, like there's no other way to do except for be looking down. I remember in college, in my undergrad, we all, and actually chiropractic college, we turned to, so we had textbooks, regular textbooks, right? And so we turned to cookbook holders for the kitchen, where it sits it upright. Instead of looking down at our desk to read and study, we put it upright here so we could still write down, but it was held up right here. And I always tell my patients, I'm like, if you're going to do cell phone stuff, do it this way. And then my arms get tired. Well, then that's the time you need to put your phone down. So that's a great gauge of like, do your work up here. And then when your arms get tired, it's time to put that down anyway. And that's a good way to work with that. So yeah, I was just thinking about, as we started talking about this, how carpal tunnel comes into my life is that at night right now, because I'm asking a lot of my spine and I've been an athlete forever, I am noticing my right hand, and it is in the median nerve. So if it's the whole hand, it's a little different, but it's these 3 fingers and sometimes half of that one go numb, but they're numb and painful. And I used to be able to just kind of like shift myself at night and shift my arm in a position and be able to get it to relieve. Well, sometimes when I wake up and it's like that, just a simple shift is not solving it, because it's not my arm, it's my neck. And it's not that I'm not adjusted regularly, but it's over a table for multiple years. Then I'm surfing and crashing. And I keep telling you guys, like my famous move is the lip slide to a face plant. And I took such a bad hit last night. I'm like, for sure I got 2 potential like light concussions. And also I actually heard things give a little bit. So, it's just, I mean, I'm extreme. I always have been. I go like full tilt and full send in life. And also now I have a new doctor in the office with me. So I've been adjusted once a week when hasn't been here, but now I get to get adjusted twice a week, or 3 times if the other chiropractor also comes in, which I love. It's so great to have even more chiropractic care access for myself personally. And so now I'm curious to watch, my neck be able to heal even more. Like I can still ask a lot of my body and just, require it through adjustments to get to the healing place more often.
Well, and that makes sense, is that, and we've talked about this before, is that many people are like, oh yeah, I go to the chiropractor once a month. Well, but is that keeping up with your life? The stress in life, if stress is up here and your chiropractic frequency is down here, your chiropractic frequency has to meet or exceed the level of stress in your life in order for your nervous system to be fully optimized. And if we really go back in time, and I think we've talked about this early on in the show, is where did all of this headache, neck pain, shoulder, arm issue come from in our world? And it's from computers. We have talked about before when we had typewriters, and typewriters, you had to, you were moving and you had to pull the paper and there was all these big movements, and now then we take it to these fine motor movements. And if we just look at the wrist, when we start to, you start to just wiggle your fingers and you see those fine muscles, you can't do that all day. That is repetitive stress, and repetitive stress is something we do each and every day over and over again. It seems small and innocent, and then until the stress builds up and then something breaks. And that's when you wake up and you complain that you had a tragic sleeping accident. And you're like, I just slept wrong. I'm like, yeah, no, you were on a computer all day and you've been doing that for 10 years or 20 years or whatever that is. So it's so critical to pay attention even more to when you get these things. It's like, don't just go to the source of the pain. Don't go to the hand. Trace it back. Root cause care. That's what we do as chiropractors. And it always goes back to the spine. Now, when you come in with something like that, we are going to address the spine. But you saw in this picture here, you see how this goes all the way down. So guess what else we do? We adjust the shoulder. We adjust the clavicle or the collarbone, perhaps the rib. We're going to adjust the elbow. We're going to adjust you at the wrist. We want to clear that nerve all the way down, because it would be, yes, we're going as far upstream and addressing it at the spine, but that doesn't mean we have to ignore what's down at the end, because if we leave that nerve compromised at the end, we're still not doing 100% of our job. So the goal is clear the nerve all the way through its path. And people come to us and they have, they'll say, geez, I wish I would have come to you before I had this surgery, because they now start to recognize how much more beneficial chiropractic care would have been for them, or people who do come in with numbness, tingling in the hands. And I'm saying numbness, tingling because people will self-diagnose numbness and tingling as carpal tunnel without, they just think carpal tunnel is numbness and tingling in the hands. It is, but it's, as Dr. Erica said, there's different parts of the hand. And when you come to us and you say, oh, my thumb or my pinky, our brain automatically goes to the level of the spine that nerve comes from.
Right.
So that's a big clue to us when you're like, yeah, I've got just this tingling here. We're like, okay, that's T1. Okay, got it. So
okay, so Serena and Norel, thank you for the questions that you have going on. It also says it would help if we could type the answers in, since she's almost deaf. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. I cannot type on my side. It doesn't allow me to comment. So I'm hoping that she was asking about ganglion cysts. She's rubbing magnesium cream on it and the use of red light for it also. The forefinger right on top. So all super awesome questions. So thank you so much. I cannot respond because it doesn't allow me to type. Otherwise I would. So Dr. Paula, I'm hoping that a little bit of answers there, but you're doing awesome stuff. Get adjusted as well. So there's that. And also Silly Lily was asking, is there a point where you get too many adjustments? And I love this question because people think that when you crack your knuckles, there's too much cracking and you're going to get arthritis and blah, blah, blah. And what if we did that to the spine? Isn't that the same thing and all the things? No, it's not, for one. Secondly, we're not over mobilizing our spinal joints. And thirdly, what I really should say is that my spine is getting checked and then adjusted as necessary. And it's quite necessary. But there are moments, like we usually start people more frequently up front, and then we go on to reducing care. So I love getting checked. And had I married a chiropractor, I would be checked multiple times a week. Didn't marry one, but I did live with one. My uncle was a chiropractor. And I lived in his home while I was starting chiropractic college. My aunt and uncle were both. And one day I happened to wake up at 2 a.m. and I went out to go find some water. I had a severe migraine headache. And so at 2 a.m. I said, Uncle Rich, I'm like really do not feel well. And I happened to be working on his shift. That I was not a chiropractor. I was just in school. So I was working on his shift that day. So he adjusted me in the middle of the night at 2 a.m., checked my neck and adjusted. Then at 7 a.m. when I got up in the morning, he did it again. Then at 9 a.m. when I got to work, checked it again. Then at noon, checked it again. And when I got back in the afternoon, checked it again. And I needed adjustments all 5 of those times that he checked me. And by the 5th one, it didn't mean that the adjustment cured my migraine, but my body was just in stress. It was like I was a student. I was filling my backpack with all kinds of rocks that we talk about, all the stresses that happen and it builds up on us. And I did get checked 5 times that day. And I did get adjusted all 5 times in one day because I had access to it. I didn't want to take medication, and it actually, got me through it to the other side where it was enough stress was relieved. My body was safe to relax around it. So anyway, we don't have the answers to everything, but can you get adjusted? Is that too much? 2 to 3 times a week for me right now is perfect, even though I've been adjusted since I was little, but it's just, I'm demanding a lot mentally because I'm onboarding a doc. I've got my whole team. I've got my, physically for sure, chemically, all the things. And so is this going to resolve the right hand? Well, yes, in certain ways, I'm certain it will. Because if I just opened my hand like this, it wasn't resolving it. That's how I know it's coming further. Because doing this should have helped, but sometimes it'll sit like that for minutes, 3-5 minutes. And so it's concerning, but also I feel really lucky that I have access to really good chiropractic care now, literally at my fingertips as of May.
And that's with any chiropractor, is that your chiropractor will be able to guide you properly. Yeah. So again, if you're somebody who comes in twice a month and then something happens, we're going to say to you, you need to be here. I need to see you a couple more times next week, or I need to see you 3 times for the next couple of weeks. Then we can go back to your maintenance. A lot of people think that once they're on maintenance care for chiropractic, that's it for life. Mm-hmm. And that's not true, because it really should ebb and flow with the demands that you put on yourself, just like Dr. Erica is explaining. And just real quick, I do want to say, which I put in the comments, is you can anybody can turn on closed caption on their side of their YouTube, and they can get closed caption here. So feel free to do that on your side. We can't do that here until
she said I have auto captions on my iPad turned on, but sometimes, especially if someone doesn't speak clearly. So thank you. I appreciate the awareness there. So yeah, we'll do our very best. So thank you for being here, and subscribe and share. You'll be healthier.
Because that's the best way to counteract carpal tunnel is subscribe, share.
Anyway, it's probably a good place to stop.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you guys for being here. We appreciate all your insight and your interaction. And I hope that was educational today and enlightening. So we will see you on the next one. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Peace.